Today we're going to be finishing up our gecko from yesterday and then hopefully fixing that bug about our direction upon a mid-scene transition. Now, if you want to see what that was looking like, if we hold up and then right, our last inputted direction will be right. So we will be animated going to the right, but our direction will still be up because up was first. So if we let go of those inputs while we're in a scene transition, our direction doesn't actually get updated. So what that looks like is I'm going to hold up, then right, then I'm going to initiate the transition, then I'm going to let go of all the keys and watch what happens. Let go, and see how he faces up. He faces up because his direction was up when he initiated the transition, and we don't update our character while we're in the transition. So we got to fix that. Hey, is that AKA Bob? What is up, dude? What's up? So yeah, I'm hoping we finish our gecko today and then fix this bug. And then maybe I think I know how we're gonna fix it. It was a little while to diagnose. I was diagnosing this after I got off of work. So the idea is like I hold up then right, then let go. And he faces up upon getting out of that transition, even though no keys were input during that transition. We're actually letting go of the keys. So we need to figure out how to do that. We just need to, it should be simple. We just need to adjust his direction upon finishing the, yeah, man, 27 followers. It's, I was at work today and I was just looking and watching a bunch of streams of software game dev peeps. So I found this guy, what's his name? TDJ Codes. I found him because he was doing Love 2D streams. So I was on his channel for a while talking to him about Lua and Love development. And he was looking for people to follow who did Love 2D and Lua games. So I told him, like, dude, look, that's exclusive what I do. So if you're interested, come check out my channel. So he gave me a follow. Then we raided Sundown, Sundown, and he's doing a Godot game. And he was super chill and cool, and he was talking to me and TDJ Codes about game development. So it turns out there's only like 136 games on Steam that are made with Love 2D and Lua. There's only 138 games. And one interesting thing is one of the popular games right now is a card game that is built in Love 2D and Lua. So I've seen a bunch of people stream that game, and it's a mainstream game. So on Sundown's stream, I was saying, hey, TDJ Codes, we should make that be 140 games made with Love 2D and Lua on Steam. You know, implying that me and him would be like the next two games to be released on Steam in a Love 2D game engine build. So once I said that, Sundown was like, hell yeah, dude, like you guys should do it. So then I started like actually considering like maybe I should shoot for a Steam release for a game, because games take so freaking long. It took me 2 years to make Joust, right? So if it takes me, and it will take me longer than 2 years to build this game, then if I ever want to get a game on Steam, it's going to take even longer than that. So maybe this is the game that we try to get on Steam. And that got me thinking, maybe we change this so it's not based on Name of the Wind, but it is just a top-down magical adventure game. And we can be inspired by Name of the Wind, but maybe we just rehaul this so that it's more original and it's something that I can sink, 2 to 4 years into, and then ultimately have a Steam release in a couple years, because that's kind of the ultimate goal, right? Is to get people, I mean, I love that people can download and play it on GitHub for free, and I probably won't charge anybody for it, but to actually get like a real release in Steam would be kind of the dream. So I'm thinking about changing this whole project. You know, we keep the bones of what we've done, but I'm thinking we change it so that it's more original and it's not based on Name of the Wind, because that's, you know, a book that's really out. So maybe we just switch it so that it's completely our own game and it unlocks a little bit more creativity for us and freedom in what we can do. But then we could potentially actually release this game on Steam. So that's kind of where I'm at. It's gonna take years anyway, so if I want a game to have been on Steam, I've gotta start it at some point. So I'm thinking that this might be the game. And this is the type of game that I would want to work on for a couple years. Because, you know, Link's Awakening is one of my favorite games of all time. So I think what that means is we'll rehaul our art, at least these flowers, so they're not a ripoff of Link's Awakening. So like we'll do our own art, all of our own assets. I mean, look at our tree. But we'll do all our own assets, so it'll be all 100% ours. Let's see if we can't fix this bug here about our direction. So, and there's a bigger problem in our input list, and it's not so much a problem, it's like a lack of foresight. Is like I'm inputting the value walk left when we do, you know, the keyboard input here, because we were using this to change our walking animation, which is literally called walk left or walk down, walk up. So the idea behind that was, I'll put in the value of the animation that we need to change, so that when we actually go change our animation, we just pass in that value as is into the state machine. But what that doesn't allow us to do is to pass in the value via the same string into our direction field, because our direction field is just left, up, right, or down. So I'm thinking we modify this so that it is literally just left, right, up, and down. Then when we go to change our state for our animation, we actually pass in the string walk hyphen and then the actual value, concatenate those two things. And then that allows us to actually change our direction based on this table as well. Because as far as I know, I don't know a way to strip parts of a string out in Lua. So I think if we narrow this down to just the directions, it'll give us more utility moving forward. So, and this actually isn't the first part. There's another part where we populate this that we have to start with. So let's find that. I think we do it in the player class. So I was trying to think of some game names to rebrand our game here so that it's not Name of the Wind based. I still want to have, you know, magic and music as part of the game. So that won't change. It is in our player update. But I'm kind of trying to think of new potential titles so that we can change the GitHub repo and the project name sooner rather than later. So if you guys have any name suggestions or ideas or anything like that, feel free to let me know. It's a game about, you know, I do want the core of the game. It's going to have a time component where, you know, time passes, and we're going to go to the academy to learn magic. So, like, we're literally going to sit in lectures in this game and learn magic, which sounds kind of boring, but I've always thought that I would love school if it was something like Harry Potter, right? Where you sit down and learn all the cool magic shit. So I don't think it's that boring when it's magic. So like, even though you'll have to get to class in this game, But if you go to class, you'll actually learn new mechanics, and if you don't go to class, you won't learn it. So it's kind of like that's kind of what I want. Like I like the aspect of the time passing, and then you have like NPCs that are kind of scripted for different positions at different times, and then I just think that would be fun. So that's kind of, I'm still thinking it's going to be like an academy for arcanists, but I don't exactly know yet the full scope of what I want to do. I've just got a couple little ideas here. So we're changing the value, right? So we're inputting only the string up, left, right, or down upon a button press, and then when we release that button, we remove that value so that it's no longer in our input list, and that's what's getting our latest input. So we still need to, this, I think that might cover us for our player class, but we need to go find where we're manipulating it further and make sure we give it the right values here, like this. So this is where we actually change the animation. So we don't want to take the walk out of here, because the walk left is actually the animation we want to change to. But look, we're not even passing it by value, so we weren't even getting the benefit of these naming conventions, because we were just passing it in by the string anyway. So see, this is exactly what I was talking about. Like, we do this change animation, we give it an idle hyphen string, and then we concatenate it with our direction so that our idle gets changed to whatever idle animation our current direction is. So that makes sense. But as far as here's concerned, we don't need to change anything for our input list. Walk down, okay. We might be okay. Now I'm curious if we've got, see, our player walk state is crashing. I think we have, we need to make sure that we are not ever populating that with the incorrect string here, but player walk state 119 is where it's crapping out. That's weird. Why would we be crapping out on our quad texture? And maybe we put in our input list here in our constants instead of our player class. That makes sense to me, even though we reference it in our player class here, but it's a global table anyway, so I think it makes sense to just put it in our constants. We'll just put it right here. I still don't know why we're crashing on any input. The value is up and up was released. Then go ahead and table.remove it. And we're removing it at the index, and the index is being assigned to k. We don't have to do that. We can just table.remove k. But that shouldn't be why we're crashing. And it's not even crashing upon releasing, it's crashing upon even pressing it. So our walk state, I wouldn't have thought that this is what crashes us. But look, we are setting our direction based on a key press. But I'm not sure why we're crashing still. All we did was change the values that we inserted into our input list, but we're not actually checking anything other than if there's items in our input list there. Let's go back to our scene and see if we forgot any potential input list assignments. Yes, we did. Well, that's just upon finish shifting, so that wouldn't have been called just yet. Here it is. Yeah, we don't want to... Did we not save this? Or this was just in our player class, not... Okay, this shouldn't prevent us from crashing. So what's happening? Our anim is a nil value in our player walk state, but we shouldn't be changing anything about our anim in our player walk state, because if we search for anim, we get a current animation. So where is our current animation? We don't even have current animation assigned in the player walk state. Wow. I really thought this was going to be super simple, guys. It wasn't supposed to break everything here. Now, our entity defs here in our animations. So we've got... There's got to be somewhere where we're assigning our animation based on the input list, and that's why it's crashing, because there's no more strings of those appropriate values being assigned, but I'm not seeing where that is. Let's look for our input list, see any other assignments here. I don't see the problem. I just looked at all of our input lists. I didn't see the problem. It shouldn't be in the finish shifting. If anything, it'd be right here. So we're assigning the string of the direction into our input list table. Okay. So the thing is, we used to have this called walk left. So we need to find where we're assigning. So right now, walk left and right shouldn't crash us. So we need to figure out where we're assigning the texture, where we're assigning the animation for our character based on the input list. And I thought that was just right here in our walk state, our player walk state. So if right keyboard is down, we check for that alternative input, but then oh wait. No, see, this shouldn't crash us. Okay, so where do we assign our animation based on our direction? Let's see where, because I feel like we're taking our direction at some point and changing our animation based on that, but I don't see that either. Now, our direction field used to control our X and Y, but we changed that. So right now, it's just a way to keep track of what direction we're moving. But I don't see where we're actually assigning a animation based on our direction. So our entity walk state uses direction to move, but our player gets the player walk state, not the entity walk state. So this is weird. Let's see if we can't figure out how to fix our bug first, and then we'll worry about changing it. I don't get why this is more complicated than I thought. Oh, right here, last input. Okay, so this is where we need to fix it. This is in our player class. We're changing our animation to the last input. Hey, ADJ Cobes! Good to see you, dude. It was fun watching your stream, dude, because I don't see a lot of Love 2D Lua developers. I'm glad you were able to stop by and say hi. I appreciate it, dude. So this is the problem here. When we change the animation, we're giving us the string, and once we updated our input list to only be the direction, it doesn't know of the animation left. It only knows the animation walk left. So we have to pass it a string of walk hyphen, and then we concatenate that with our last input, which is the direction. So now I was gonna say we won't crash using left and right, and then we crashed. But I think we literally just changed where we assigned those. Okay, here we go. So let's put just the direction now. Now it'll be walk left hyphen concatenated with left instead of walk left hyphen walk left. That's why it just crashed right then and there. And now we're working. Okay, cool. So now what that allows us to do, now our input list is actually called the direction. Yeah, man, it's so we're doing like a top-down adventure game like Link's Awakening in Love 2D. We just finished our screen shifting a lot like the CS50 game dev Zelda tutorial. So we've got the dungeons rendering for every new screen here. And the difference is ours isn't a random dungeon. The difference is we have a global map of all these different tiles that we can manually insert so that we can traverse particular levels that we've built. So we've got a specific map that we're at, which you can't read with my other debugging there, so I'll probably end up changing that soon so we can have more legibility there. But let's go about fixing our bug now, which is if we walk up then right and then let go of inputs, by the time we finish transitioning, he faces upwards because his direction was upwards, because we stopped updating the character upon a scene transition. So what we need to do to fix that is to assign our direction based on our last input from our input list. And that'll be a lot easier now because our input list is a table of strings that directly correlate to the names of the animation of our direction. So that'll be a lot easier now. Let's go to where we finish shifting. And right here, when we define finish shifting, right now what we're doing is we clear our input list and then we check for that continuous input. There's a better way to do this. We could do this in like a for loop, but that isn't the problem. The problem is our self.direction needs to get updated, and our self.direction needs to get updated to be the value of our input list at the index of the number of items in our input list. And what that will do is set our direction to be the string value of whatever the last value of our input list is, which means I'm hoping it'll fix that bug. So now if we walk up, then right, then let go, we're still facing up. So we're not doing it exactly right. Once we finish shifting our self-direction, oh, it's not self-direction because we're in our scene class, so it should be our player, our self.player direction. So now let's see if that fixes it. Up and right, and then I let go, and we're facing right. So that's the correct thing. So now we don't have that bug, which is really good. So that's awesome. We've got that bug fixed, and we've fixed what I've been wanting to fix, which is that input list now being a literal string of our direction so that we can change our animation easier. We can change to our idle animation or our walk animation based on our last input list a lot easier now that name is cleaned up. So I'm gonna go ahead and tidy up some of our debug here. So like we're rendering. See, I like this where if we hold H for help in my mind, we are rendering that debugging option, but right now we are also, this is our keylogger. Where are we rendering the other debug? We should probably have them all in the same. Oh, dude, I just undid our fix. Let me just redo. There we go. We redo that fix. We need to go. I think it's in our scene. We should have all our debugging all on the same page, so we're not digging around like this. Yeah, we've got debugging here. So this is of our self.player inputs held. Okay. So what we'll do is go to our. And you know what? It makes sense to have the debugging in our scene, I guess. Either that or the play state, so I guess it's fine. We can have two debugging options. And I like that it darkens the screen because it's easier to read. So what we'll do is we'll just give us another page of debugging options. And I used to, and what we should probably do, we'll just give us pages on the numbers. So like if I hold down the number 1, we'll get our first debugging print ups, and then 2 is our second page, and so on. I think I like that. Let's give us this same stat, which is, and actually we can take that and put it out here. So we use it for all our debugging options, and then we just worry about the clean values here. Okay, so this should be cleaner now. Let's see. Okay, so we're not setting our. We're setting our color, which is darkening our whole screen, because when we do our scene, we just have to set our color back to white. So, let us set our color, and we'll make sure in our scene, like the first thing we do in our render, oh, we do set it to white. So, okay, I don't know why it's so dark then. We're setting the color to gray so we can fill the screen, then we reset it to white. So yeah, we shouldn't be having a dark screen like that. But now we've got those different debugging options. We'll put it on 1 and 2. just because that's easier to remember than H and 2, for sure. So 1 will probably be map and character, and then 2 will be, yeah, I don't know. But right now, we can cram it on the same page. And now we should also put, a value here, so we don't have to kind of manually increment the Y so that they don't overwrite each other. And then, for whatever reason, I don't get why that would make our scene darker. It's at the end of our render, and we reset our color to white. Actually, well, yeah, I think if we set our color right before the scene view, it would change it because, well, I don't know actually. Let's try just setting our color to white before we render our scene and see if that fixes our issue. No. Okay, I don't know why. Okay. We'll just dump this here. Okay, so now we have the darker screen for easier legibility when we're printing our debug options. And we don't have anything for debug 2 because we crammed it on 1. Yeah, we should find a way. We should find a way to automate the line spacing here, so we don't have to go in and manually do that. And our inputs held is not a useful value anymore. We need to go remove that because we don't use that anymore. Okay. What? Yep, this is all our old logic. So what we'll do... Okay, we'll delete this. What we'll do is we'll clean up our player class by getting rid of all our old logic before we implemented our entity system. So now that we've got everything working again, I feel totally fine deleting all this crap. Oh my god. Ugh. Yeah, this was like, I want to say this was 325 lines in our play state, our player class rather, and now our player class is just 100. So we turned our player class into a third of the lines just by implementing our entity system, so that's cool. We don't need this. Okay, so we fixed our bug. So why don't we go try to finish our gecko from yesterday and then try to get a new entity on screen here. I think that would be fun, so let's go ahead and try it. We'll pull up our A-Sprite. Let's pull up our gecko from yesterday. Oh, look how little. Okay, so there's our gecko. Right now it looks like this, which it's not too bad. I don't think I like his, it looks like he's got like crab claws because of the U on his little paws. We did that because the reference photo when we shifted it down looked kind of like that, but maybe if we give it like a little cross with toes, it'll look more like a gecko than a crab. So let's see here. Let's draw our potential new paw with black so we can kind of take a look like So like that's the kind of shape I'm thinking for the paw now instead of the claw. So if his paws are like that, I've got a... it's not a gecko paw. I don't know what his feetsies are called. Okay, so if his feet look like that instead of the U, I think it'll pass better. It'll be more readable. So I'm just gonna draw the new paws with black, because if I start erasing stuff, it'll be hard to see where the paw was supposed to finish. So I think it makes sense to kind of draw it with black, and then we can go and touch up the actual brown, because we don't want to lose the placement of the feet, because we worked hard on that with the reference photo. Yeah, I think this shape is looking more gecko feet like, so I think that's good. Okay. And actually, even the black doesn't look final, but it doesn't look that awful. Like, I think that's pretty good on the timing of the movement. Like, I like that I've got his head and his butt shifting, and maybe his butt is shifting. Let's see how many frames his butt is shifting. There's 2, and then 3. Okay, so since it's 5 frames, it's his butt and his head won't have an equal time on a side, but I like that offsetness of it. So let's go ahead and try to brownify our feet here and turn our feet into our more final feet. So that's looking good. Well, before I brownify them, I'm just shaping them. Oh, this is looking good. We'll see if we want more feet on that one. Yeah, this is looking a better shape for his feet than the U was looking. Yes. Okay, yes. That's looking good. I actually don't even hate the black feet even. Maybe we make his feet a darker brown. We've only got... Our color palette doesn't have a darker brown than that. I'm a little hesitant to add more colors to our palette without being super intentional about it. So let's see what... I don't know. I do kind of think it should be... Let's see what it looks like if it's the same color as his head, the same orange as his head. And then we'll see if that looks weird or not. So we'll paint bucket, which is what, G? Dude, I'm getting, so like Photoshop, GIMP, Sprite all have different bucket tools. What is the bucket tool, man, in Sprite? G, I thought it was G. It's, oh, it is G. It just doesn't change, the cursor. Okay. So let's make it this brighter orange, and we'll see how that looks. I don't know if I like that. Let's see. So, when we raided Saltamanga yesterday, after the stream, he asked for us to share the pixel art in his Discord once I'm done with it today. So, actually, what do you guys think of that? Is it too... There's I think there's too many pixels. Yeah, like right here. We need, it's looking pretty good. I just think there's a couple of spots that need to be touched up. Like this, like I think his... Yeah, that's looking better. There's just a couple spots that could use the shaping better. Yeah. Oh, that's cool. We could do like an alternating GIF of this one for like animated GIF, or what's it called? The emotes on chat. Once I figure out how to do that. Okay. This one is looking messy. Okay, let's look at that. That's looking really close. There's this pixel I don't like. And maybe it should be right here. I'm trying to think if his butt is too... If his butt is too pointy, or if we shouldn't move his butt tail here. He really... The Cresties really do have a little frog butt like that, so I think I want to keep it. But maybe we don't shift it to side. Maybe that's just too much. So let's see what it looks like when we don't shift it, and see if that eases some of the issues I'm seeing here. It's looking quite good though, to be honest. Yeah, I don't know. It loses a lot of life when we don't scoot his butt. So I think we will keep it. Yeah, I think we will keep it, his little butt moving. It just adds a little bit. And maybe we can have another... Maybe we move it to the other side. So if it's middle, left, middle. So maybe this one we move it to the right. And see how that looks if it shifts. Oh, that looks weird. It's just too much. It's just too much pixels for his butt to move. It really shouldn't move 3 pixels, so it just looks weird. It's close, but... Okay. Yeah, that's very close. I like that a lot. That's pretty readable as a gecko, huh? Because when we shrink it down to more game-appropriate size, there's still a couple stray pixels here. Like... I think I don't like this gap here. I think this should be brown. Okay, so if we take a look at his left leg, it kind of reaches fast and comes back down, but his right leg is like da 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 da. So I think if we mimic his right back foot reach like we've got here, because look at that jump. It goes from bottom to pretty high up. I think if we mimic the right foot after that, it'll look a little better. So this frame, maybe his foot goes a little one pixel higher. Wow, that really looks like a crested gecko. It really does. There we go. But then his left back foot here goes it hops quite a distance and then back quite a distance, rather than 1 pixel difference like this foot is. This foot is actually staying stationary for this whole frame, so we'll scoot this one down on frame 5, and we'll scoot this one a little bit more down too, and then hopefully that'll balance out. Yes. It's a different... It's different than his left foot, which is... Oh, and look at his left foot only moves twice. I think that actually looks pretty good for his left foot. I think, well, it's close. I don't like that his right foot looks like it's bouncing because it goes up here. So this one we don't want fully down because we don't want that bounce. Okay, it's really close. It's really close. I think we have 1 too many frames here, 1 too many pixels here. His arm just looks so skinny there. Yeah. I think that's actually not bad. So if we take a look at his left back foot again, it goes from very low to pretty high up, then medium and medium. So if his back right foot goes from low to very high up, and then medium, medium. So if this one matches the next frame, that's looking very close. Yeah, and I don't like how his tail touches his foot here, and it's one big piece of orange. I don't like that, but we don't really have a way around it. We could get rid of the side tail pieces and just have a straight line here. Let's see how that looks. Actually, that's not bad. Ugh, it just looks weird. The line split right there looks really weird. Yeah, it really does look better with the little cross on his tail like that. Okay. Well, I think we're just about done here. There's something a little off about... And I know in our reference photo, when he brings his feet together, they're closer than this. They're almost touching each other. So maybe we just scoot his feet a little closer together. Whoa, this one is weird. Yeah, why would his hand go from here to here and nothing else change in that frame 5? So we'll fix that. That's weird. Okay, yeah, let's move his paw down one. What just happened there? Oh my gosh, I just noticed something and now I don't think I can unsee it. I'm wondering if you guys see it too. Oh no. It's fine. It's fine. It's not a big deal. Okay. Yeah, I don't like how frame 5 doesn't have... Well, it's almost good because when it was 4 frames, it looked like it was just alternating too much. And the gecko walk animation we've got, it does have the alternating manner to it, but it does have... It's not a constant speed. Like, it's almost like he goes like step, step, step. So like we have to double up a frame somewhere to kind of get that asynchronous loop going just a bit. So I think frame 5 is just a little strange to me, but I think it makes sense. And maybe we just give him like an extra pit down there. Yeah, I really can't unsee what I've seen now. Let's see. See, and I don't like the this pixel coming out of nowhere. I don't like this. I thought it would make his arm look like it's still moving, but keep the same spot, but I don't like it. And then I don't like when this goes up. Where is it? I think it's this pixel that I don't like. Yeah, that's better. Okay, I think I like that. There's maybe one too many pixels on his right back foot when it comes up like this. Yeah, and then maybe right here. Well, no, that looks... It's such a delicate art, like one pixel, and especially when you're animating, like it's so delicate. Like you change one thing and it throws off everything. Yeah, you know what? I do like this top pixel here. I've got to like look away from it for a second and then come back to it to kind of get fresh eyes. Maybe just the thing that's sticking out to me is that his tail meets his left foot here, like we saw before. Because once that frame is happening, like it looks like a, you know, a backwards L. Maybe we just scoot frame 5 back foot in 1 so that he's got the L over here. Oh, that looks weird. Yeah, we lost the movement of his right back foot there. Yeah, we don't like that. So like if we just look at each foot, right? Like his left foot kind of does like a clockwise loop. His right hand does like an out and back in. Right hand out and back in. Okay, so then this one, See, and this one just goes up, so it's not really doing that clockwise loop that his other foot is doing. So I think if on the down position, when it goes to its lowest point, it's out towards the border of the frame 1 pixel, and that gives the kind of circular stepping. So I think we just need to add that here. So I think we need to just stretch his bottom foot down here out to the right, and then that'll give us that more circular stepping here. So I think if we move this out by 1, then maybe boy, really is so delicate. Okay, I still think there's 1 pixel too many of brown somewhere here. I think it might be right there. Yes. And then I'm not sure I like this pixel. It looks weird when I don't have that, but maybe I can put... No. Let's try that. You've tried a really fun-looking Pixel Art Academy demo on Steam. Pixel Art Academy. Okay, is that a channel or is that an app? But yeah, dude, I mean, I would love to know how to use Aseprite properly. I don't think I've ever actually looked up a tutorial. I've just been figuring it out as I go. But that's a really good idea, because there's a lot of stuff I want to learn how to do. Like, I know they've got onion skins on here, which is really useful. I just don't use it. Let's see, show onion skin, yeah. So like, I know they've got that, so you can see like the next frame, so you can kind of see the animations where they're going to, or see the previous frame rather, I guess. I know you can change the settings here. I don't mess with that. But I know it's got a lot of cool features. Yeah, so, and that's the thing, we did try to shift it, and when we shift it 3 pixels instead of just alternating between the 2, his tail looked like it was just sliding way too far. It just didn't look natural. So even though it does not go the same distance, it looks so wrong when we slide it 1 pixel further to the other direction. It's just one of those things, like, and same with his head. Since his head comes to a point and it's a 16 by 16, we can't have his head in the very middle, because the very middle would be in between these 2 pixels. So we have to pick and choose which, and his head does alternate between those 2 middles. But with his tail, if we slide it 1 more pixel to give the equal amount of slide, it just looks too wrong. So it's just weird. I think this is pretty good. So, and the thing I can't unsee anymore is that instead of little gecko paws, I imagine him flipping off like this. Instead of walking like this, he's like this. So that's what I can't unsee anymore. Which makes it funnier, but but I think it's readable, and I think the gecko, I don't know if the gecko's gonna only be in the sand biome, or if we might put him in the forest too. I don't know. Maybe we'll make like a desert gecko and a forest gecko, but this is pretty readable. There's something a little off about this right back foot that I don't like as much still. I think from here to here, it should move already, but it doesn't. So I think, yeah, his right back foot I don't like as much. It doesn't have as much movement as his left foot. Yeah. I think it's this frame 5 I don't like for it. So maybe we'll keep his frame 4. Uh-oh. Maybe we'll keep his frame 4 a little higher so that his frame 5 is actually different than the frame 4, and maybe that'll fix what I'm not liking. That does look better. Okay, I think I'm happy with this, at least for an initial go. So let's save this, a sprite, and then we'll make a new sprite sheet, and it'll be 5 pixels long, 5 tiles long. So it'll be 16 times 5, 80 wide, 16 tall. And then we'll just make this a whole sprite sheet, because our animation system handles the quads. So all we need to do is separate it into one atlas. Oh, there's our original back. We found some YouTube video of a crested gecko walking that we used as reference here. So this is the... Oh, we only imported one of them, but like, that's the reference photo we used for it. So that's... See where we got the U pause? The U right there. And over here too. But I think it's more readable when he's like this, so... It looks good. Let's just copy this second frame. Oh, we gotta make sure we get this spacing right. Let me, before we do this, just to be safe, I'm gonna add a black dot to each top left corner, just so, because his head moves, I can't just place it according to where his head is, and I just want to make sure we align this right. So I'm just going to put a little black dot there so we know how to align it on our atlas here, and then we'll just delete that sprite, or that dot after. See, because like we weren't sure if it was this frame or this frame, where to align it, so now we know with that black dot. And I'm sure Asprite has a way to snazzily export this stuff. But I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure it does. I'm sure it does. I really should just look at a more tutorial. I've always been the kind of just teach myself person. So if I know enough to get around, I'm not likely to sit through a tutorial, especially because the tutorials are often like starting from the very beginning, and I don't really need I don't need it to be like spoon-fed to me. I just need to know a couple unique features and stuff, but I'll look up a tutorial and see what I could do different. Okay. That's cool. That's cool to see him laid out like that. Yeah, I like that a lot. Dude, all I see is the flipping off. All I see is that now. Oh god. Let's see. Let's save this as a atlas, gecko atlas. And then we'll export this as a PNG. We'll save it to our repo here, and we'll call it Gecko Atlas. Let's just do camel case so that we have some sort of convention going. Okay, so we've got our gecko atlas. So how do we import this into our love project? We've got in our dependencies, we've got global texture sheets, which right now we only have one for the walking, but we'll put gecko as a key in our table of global textures, and we'll give it this new image of the atlas that we are just exported. So our graphics / gecko atlas camel case .png. Okay, now we need to separate our quads. Now they call the quad the same as their texture, and as long as that works, I feel like you shouldn't do that, but I think it makes sense because when they render their entities, they render it at the texture and quads, and they save their current animation as a .anim. Hey, ADJ Codes, hey, thanks for stopping by, dude. I really appreciate you checking out the stream here, and I had fun watching yours today too. It's cool to see another Love 2D streamer, man. So keep it up. I'll keep tabs on you, man, because I want to see your progress. 3 a.m. Yeah, dude. You get a good night's rest, but thanks for hanging out tonight, man. I appreciate it. Thanks, man. Yeah, all my games are up on GitHub, so people can follow along and see what I'm doing. So I hope you sleep well, dude. I'll catch you later. It does make sense that they put the same quad name as the character sheet, because they save their current animation as a anim, a variable called anim. So then when they're drawing, they say anim.texture, anim. Or gframes at anim.texture, and then gtextures at anim.texture. So it just cleans up the render a little bit, but it does kind of rub me the wrong way that they do that here, and I don't know why. I think it's just I don't like naming things the same thing, so I don't want any confusion. But it's in a different table, so I think it makes sense. As long as we're not extracting different animation sets from it, like we wouldn't put. Well, because yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, our character idle is part of our character walk texture and part of our character walk quad. So it's just in our entity defs we have to assign which frame goes to what animation class. So I think it's not that big of a deal. I think I'm just not. I don't know why I'm wary to name it the same thing. We can't forget the commas here, and I'll just pre-add in a comma for the next one because we know we're gonna have more stuff than that. So we've got our texture and our quads set for our new gecko here, so that's cool. And our generate quads function takes in a texture, which we're giving, and then it takes in a tile width and a tile height. And it's the same size as our main character, 16 by 16 here, so it should be chopped up just like our character is. So now if we go into our entity defs, we can see that we've got a player, right, that has a height, width, walk speed, and animations, and we've got a gecko. So we've already added a gecko, but we haven't. We need to do a couple of things. We'll give it a width and the height, and see, like, we've got to do it. We've got to define it here, but certain things like in X and Y position, we aren't necessarily defining in here because we don't want a default X or Y position, but we would want a default kind of height and width, I guess, because if we're doing any if we're doing any arithmetic based on collision or whatever, that height and width isn't going to change, but his X and Y is going to change all the time. So that's why we're only including certain things here in the entity defs. But when we manually assign and instantiate this entity def, we're going to want to make sure that we pass in the appropriate initializations for an X and Y, otherwise we'll crash. So we'll look at, and the thing is, I don't know, in our animations we've got, and you know what, we'll give the gecko an idle animation, and maybe his idle is just his head moving, or it's just stationary, I think. So it'll just be frame 1. We'll do that. I'm gonna take a peek at frame 1, make sure we like that for his idle. Actually, it looks like this frame 5 is his idle when he's kind of like a square, because his frame 1 is when he's reaching, so I think his frame 5 is a good idle. I think that's good. So we'll give him an idle animation table and then a walking, or we'll call it, yeah, we'll just call it walking. I was wanting to call it like scurrying because he looks like he scurries away, but walk is probably better. So we'll give a key called walk, and let's do idle first. We'll do idle, and we'll assign it to a table. And in that table, we'll give it a table of frames, and it'll be idle is frame 5. Now we can set a looping property to this, which we probably should do. I haven't tested that yet, so since I want to get it to just work, we'll give it an interval, which will actually change it from frame 5 to frame 5 over and over again at the interval, but we'll just make sure that we go and test that looping, because it's only 1 frame, so we shouldn't be changing the frame. We want to give it the gecko of texture. Now, what else? I think this is good for our entity defs. We just need to go actually instantiate this gecko. Now we've got, we need walk. So there's a gecko idle, and this is what we're using. We're gonna, in our, what is it? In our entity class, I think we generate animations. We've got a generate animations or get animations function that takes in whatever these tables are, and it'll spit out, as long as we update our entity, it'll spit out whatever current frame and current animation we're on. So we need to make sure to assign these, and this is going to be frames 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And let's do a faster interval once we shift to walk. So let's see if we go to our, is it in our scene? Where do we assign our, let's do this where we say player gets, no. Normally I instantiate a class with parentheses, but now when we're doing the entities, we kind of manually assign it into a table. But I'm not seeing where that is. Let's see the top of our, it's got to be in our play state here. Okay, so, and here's the other thing. We got to think about how our game handles these entities. If we put every entity generation here in our play state, it doesn't make a ton of sense. because not every frame will have not every scene will have a gecko. So I'm kind of thinking we should put this player not in our play state. Well, player makes sense to be in play state because player is going to be the one constant throughout every scene. So that makes sense. But I think for our other entities, we want to put it somewhere else, and maybe in our scene, and maybe instead of, I don't know, because I've never worked with entities before, so we'll have to figure it out. Okay, so what are we doing with our player entity here in play state? Well, we assign it those variables to start with in the init, and then we update our scene, which we pass in, don't we pass in, we've got a scene that we pass in that player entity. So we want to make sure our scene has access to our entity. So once we give the scene our player class, then in our scene we're saying, hey, we're going to be updating our player. This is just a function. Where is our update? Here's our update, and we update our player. So we've got to not only update one. Yeah, I think I will scene it. That makes a lot more sense. So, but I guess I just don't know. We'll have to have like a random chance for a gecko to spawn, and you know, like a gecko might not spawn in the town, but out in the desert or forest, there's a chance for a gecko to spawn. And I'm thinking it'll spawn in idle state, sitting there, and as you get closer to it, if you get within, you know, both widths of a gecko, it'll scurry away and run off screen. Like I'm thinking, like in Breath of the Wild, right? Like like a gecko in Breath of the Wild, it'll be there just chilling, and then if you walk close enough to it, it'll scurry away and disappear. That's kind of the idea. And I don't know if we'll make it so that you can do something with the gecko. I'm sure we'll figure out something. We can feed the gecko berries to like tame it, and then it can follow us around and bite enemies or some shit. We can get creative. I don't know. That's what's so cool about games, man. Like you're only limited by your imagination and then your grit to just sit down and implement it. Yes, exactly. The gecko will lay an egg. It's a 10% chance when he scurries away, he'll crap out an egg. Yeah, so in my game, I'm wanting money, of course. Oh no, our entity defs. We don't have commas in our entity defs. Without even reading the debug, I knew where we messed up. Oh, come on. Now we need a freaking... What are we missing now? We're missing... What are we missing? A comma? No. Oh, we need a comma right here. Jeez. Okay. We'll add a comma here for good measure in case we add another animation like bite. Really? Okay. Global texture and nil value in our dependencies. Did we not save our gecko to the right graphics folder? Graphics. Gecko Atlas PNG. We've got it in there. Let's just make sure. We must have spelled graphics wrong or something in our dependencies. No. Graphics. Gecko Atlas PNG. What am I missing? Attempt to index a G texture. It's crashing in the dependencies here. So this is the line that's crashing. Oh, G texture, not G textures. My bad. Okay. So we don't crash. Now I'm wanting to add, you know, we're going to have little hearts on our HUD like Link's Awakening, I think. And then we're going to have coins, obviously, because it's fun to collect gold and money. We're going to have to think about what kind of stuff we want to add. Because I do think, and I think it's better to change it now, early on, before we get too far into it. I think we should change it off of a Name of the Wind game into just a more generic Magic game. Because then if I spend, and when I spend 2 or 3 years on it, just like I did for Joust, at the end we might be able to just publicly release it. And I'm worried if we base it on a book that we don't have the rights to, that, you know, it wouldn't be so nice to post on Steam a game based on a book that we didn't get the rights to make. And my OBS is saying we're down at 14 frames a second, so sorry if that's all laggy. There's I don't know why, but it says it's at like 14 and 20 frames. And it does look like that on my end, but the recording at least is full 60, so YouTube is getting the good stuff at least. Let's see if we can get a gecko on screen here. So we've got the gecko entity, but we are not populating it anywhere, so let's go into our scene. Now, instead of worrying about what scene enables a gecko or whatever, we're just going to give our scene a gecko, and then we'll worry about actually spawning a gecko if there is one. And then another big thing we have to worry about in our game as a whole is just how do we keep track of entities and where they're at on our global map, because they're going to have locations, X and Y's, that they go to, and they walk, and they need to be active and not disappearing, whether or not our scene is rendering that. So we kind of need to, like, we might need to update all our entities' positions for those permanent entities in our play state, so we have a reference to it, and then once it gets to our current scene, we render all the entities that are in that current scene. But then as far as things like geckos go, there's like a certain amount of chance that it would spawn. So maybe in the scene, when we populate the scene, we say like this scene has a 10% chance for a gecko entity. And then if you walk into the scene, there might be a gecko, and if you walk out and walk back in, there might be or might not be one. So that's a different type of, it's a non-permanent entity with when NPCs are going to have like a place where they live, like in Stardew Valley, they have like a house they walk to and from work or whatever at certain times of day, and they have to kind of sustain through the map no matter what scene you're on. So let's give ourselves, oh gosh, here. We'll give our scene a gecko. So it'll be called self gecko. And how do we instantiate the class here, or the entity? We take a look at our play state. We've got a self player. So we have to give the name of our, actually, yeah, and this is different because here we have a player class. I think we would want to give it just a random entity, an entity class. So we would instantiate with an entity class, and then we'd populate all the values, and then we have to update it, and then we have to render it. So that should be all it takes to get our gecko. So let's go back to our scene. We've got a self.gecko. It's going to get an entity instantiation, which is a capital E, and we're gonna say, and see, okay, there we go. We've got the purple, or the orange, which tells me that it is recognizing that as a class. And then we need to assign that entity's X to be equal to, let's just say 50, and our Y to be 50. And then we've got, and it makes sense to put, well, we already got its width and height in the entity def, so I think, oh, and then what we can do, we would say self.width gets our, no, we can't quite do this because we're not, yeah, we can't quite do this. See, because we're assigning it, okay, so we have to go, yeah, okay, that makes sense. So we'd have to animate it based on this. So let's do, we'll just copy this over so we have something to reference. Now, why don't we give a self.animations? It's kind of weird that it's just animations. I'm not sure why they don't have that, but let's continue that convention and just see. So our animations is going to get from our entity defs at the table of gecko. A dot animations declaration. Now in our, let's take a look at our entity class real quick, because our entity class is what actually creates animations. So in our entity class, our dot animations upon initialization will run this create animations function. So this is what confused me for a while, is that we pass in the gecko, right? We pass in the gecko entity, and then we're going into that dot animations in our entity defs, and we're assigning into that entity's dot animations. So it's the same title. It's going to be our entity dot animations, but before we initialize the entity, the dot animations is just part of the entity defs. Then when we assign it, we move it into a dot animations, and it actually returns the multiple animations from right here. So like we use our animation class. So every animation in our gecko, which currently is an idle and a walk, is gonna get, it's gonna have the name of the title that we can change it to, and then the texture and the frames. In our animation class, as long as we update our entity, we'll spit out a current frame, and that's how we know, that's how we can render the animated frame, because this animation class modifies the quads based on the interval and sets our current frame. So that confused me for a while, but we've got, and we put into in animations with an S here. So, and you know what? We don't need self, because since we're making a entity declaration here, they're inside the entity, so we can just say with, let's do this with tile size here instead of our entity defs, just because that's how we did it for our other character. So let's keep that. We'll make sure we've got the commas here. Okay, so we've got an entity instantiation here. Let's see if we crash. We don't crash, so that's okay, or that's good. So now what we need to do is we need to update our gecko entity and then render it. So if we go to our update function in our scene here, we'll see that we are updating our player. So we're gonna want to, if our self.gecko exists, which it should and will, then we're gonna go ahead and self.gecko update with delta time. Now, as of right now, update will only update our frame of our idle state, but we have to actually give our gecko entity the different states for the animation. So we have to actually go a lot like when we went to, in our player here, we give our player entity a state machine field that returns the state machine of whatever state machine is going to render. So for our entity, our gecko entity is going to get the default entity walk state and entity idle state. So we'll make sure we do that in our scene here. We need to give our .gecko here self.gecko .state machine gets a walk and an idle. So we have to change. Like this just gives us a .state machine to change to, but we have to actually change to it. So if we take a look at our player, actually in our play state, we change the state right there. So once we give it, we change it, and then we'll take a look at our entity walk state and idle state. Actually, let's just do that right now. Our entity idle state is literally just, it takes in an animation, it'll change its animation to an idle.entity direction. So we have to do that. We don't have that at the moment. We only have an idle period animation. So we'll give different idle directions. And then we're waiting, and this is for an AI, so it's like it's waiting 5 seconds, and it might walk after 5 seconds. Actually, yeah, it'll walk a random time between 0 and 5 seconds. So once it's in idle state, it could be up to 5 seconds until it changes state to walk. But then we render our entity idle state. So we do have to give ourselves, we have to make sure to give ourselves an entity direction and an entity animation in our entity defs here. Because, and actually we should add this. Now we don't handle, we've got only one. Okay, how do we do this? I think we ultimately would want to do a bigger atlas that has all the directions that our gecko can face, because the alternative is we've got the 5 frames of the animation, but in order to take each frame and rotate it to whatever direction we're currently facing, we would have to love.graphics.draw texture quad, rotation, scale X, scale Y. These are all the parameters. And then a offset X. So like once we rotate it, it rotates on the 0, 0. So it's the top left. So if we rotate a gecko, let's say it's right here, right? It's right here in the middle. We rotate, let's say we rotate it in radians to, face the left. It rotates on that 0, 0 point. So when we rotate it, we'd have to shift its X and Y position. So all this to say, instead of worrying about all that stuff, we would give ourselves 4 times the amount of animations we currently have. It would turn from 5 to 20, and it would just look at what direction it's facing, and it would render those sprites. We don't have to shift anything on the X offset. We don't have to shift anything in radians on the rotation. We would just, depending on the way it's shifted, render that animation. So that's probably the way we're going to do it, just because it is more, we use more memory in terms of the picture and sprite sheet, and if we make 1 pixel of change on the sprite sheet, we'd have to update it for every single walking direction. So it's more work in that sense, but in terms of the game just running smoothly and being easy to work with, it makes more sense to do the atlas with 5 or 4 times the amount of sprites as we currently have. So for right now, we'll give ourselves an idle up, because our gecko defaults, how we made it currently is facing up. So we'll just give it an idle up, and we'll make sure to give it a direction when we instantiate it. I don't know if when do we give, I know we set our dot direction for our player here, but I'm not sure. Oh, we do it where? In our entity def. Oh, okay. So maybe I'll put direction up in our entity def, so that, well, it's just that we don't have an animation for up, we don't have an animation called down, and that's how our entity class is actually rendering stuff. So we're just going to manually change our gecko entity's direction to be up, so that by the time we create the animations, we actually have the proper direction to pass in, because we only have an idle up. So if we take a look at that entity idle state again, once we're in idle state, our entity's animation's getting updated to that. So as long as we change our direction before we change to our idle state, we should hopefully not crash. So in our scene, we'll go, we've got our entity, we've got our idle, or we've got our state machines for our gecko. Now I'm going to change our gecko's dot direction to be equal to the string up. And then we're going to self.gecko, and this is where we go gecko.stateMachine, and then we run the change function, and we pass into the change the state we want to change it to, which will be idle, and idle is returning not the player walk state, but the entity idle state here. And then the walk will be entity walk state. Okay. Now, and we don't want, why do we have room here? Why would we have room? We should have scene here. I just want to make sure we didn't crash, because for some reason we had, room was the name of the Zelda dungeon from the CS50 library, but we're literally passing in the dot room instead of the dot scene, and we didn't catch that until now. We don't crash because I think the parameter is just treated as, the parameter name isn't used unless it's in the walk state itself, and we still, oh, we call it room here. But if we search for room, we don't use it anywhere. So this should not be room. This should be scene. We'll just change that. We aren't using that anywhere, so we need to make sure we actually use that so our player has a reference to the current scene. Now, did we end up using our needs refresh? We don't, so we can get rid of that too. Okay, so let's try to get our gecko rendering here. We need to update our gecko entity, and then we need to render our gecko entity. So let's go to our scene. Now, in our update, we are updating it, so now we just need to go and render it. And it renders based on the state it's in, which is in the idle state, which has the appropriate render already. So we'll just say that if our gecko exists, which it should right now, I'm just trying to prevent any crashes. We'll say self.gecko, render that bad boy, and we'll see if it's at 50/50, which is where we instantiated it, and we're not seeing it. We are in, we don't change our state here. Yeah, we do. Gecko state machine change to idle. So why aren't we seeing it? If we change to walk, does it crash? Yes, it does, because we don't give it the up direction. Let me see. is all we have to do, go to our .state machine to give us that access. It's not, oh, we don't go, we go into the state machine to assign it, but our player has a change state that gets that field anyway. So all we have to do is call self gecko change state, and then it should work. I'm hoping. Let's see. Not .state machine, but just gecko change. Let's see. It's not that simple. It's change state is what it is. So, where were we? In our scene, we've got our gecko. We go change state to idle. We still don't got our gecko. Oh my gosh. Now we've got our blurry character back. Now, that's not what I was assuming would happen. We've got a gecko. We've got it inheriting a state of idle. We are changing it to an idle. We're rendering that gecko in our scene, just like we're rendering our character. So we are actually, let's take this out. We'll just update our gecko no matter what, because we should have it. I'm very confused why we got blurry cabal. Oh, we're not flooring our values anymore for some reason. Let me see. How did that stop happening? Math.floor. We're flooring our player. So it looks like our scene is not... Oh, hold on a sec. It's like our character is now rendering from the entity walk state instead of the player walk state. That's my only guess because our player walk state doesn't have flooring. But we didn't change that. We've got a player walk state. Let's make sure in our play state, our player's getting a player walk state, and it is. And then we're changing its state to idle. Dude, I don't know why that flooring just broke once we added a gecko entity. That doesn't make any sense to me. We're close. Yeah, we didn't change anything in here. In our player walk state, the only thing we changed was this room, but we're not even using the room anywhere, so that shouldn't even change anything. If we change it back to room just to entertain this idea that actually changed something, then we go to our play state and we give a self.room to our player. Dude, what the heck? What is happening? We're missing something. We're gonna check our get diff here and see if we tweaked anything of our player that we're not seeing here. So we do want to give a dot scene here, and in our state machine for our player walk state, all of these rooms should be actually seen. And then the only idea I have is to check our get diff and see if we modify our player. So there's our bug fix with our input list, and we named our input list down to the directions. We got rid of our old player class logic, so none of that should be causing this problem. That was all commented out. Holy crap. We got rid of a lot. Okay, so we're changing a gecko's state machine, but why would that change our player? Dude, we're not doing anything to our... Yeah, we're not doing anything different to our character here. We're really not doing anything different to our character except... Yeah, we took out the scene and room, which we just proved wasn't the problem. And our state machine gets the scene instead of the room. That's the only thing we changed. So why is his rendering all weird like that now? That is so strange to me. It looks like he's on cops. What the heck? And then it's fine, or... He's fine on this square. He's fine on square 2. He's not blurry on square 2. But on the top row of squares, he's blurry. What the heck? Oh, he's blurry again. What the... What is happening? Dude, we're not doing anything different here. The only thing we did is change this value, which doesn't even get updated anywhere. And even when we changed it back, that didn't fix the problem. Let's take a look at our play state and make sure. Yeah, man, we're not doing anything different to our player, I swear. Let me see if we comment out our gecko in our scene. If we comment out our gecko, because the only thing I can think of is that like our entity state is overriding our player state for some reason. So if we comment out our gecko and we don't render our gecko anymore, then is our player jacked? It isn't. That is so strange. Why would our totally separate entity is screwing up the render for our character? Dude, why is that possible? No! If you hold 3 inputs at once, he doesn't go, he's in an idle state. So we'll need to fix that. That might be indicative of some problem here, because I thought we actually did handle inputs being 3. In our player walk state here, we actually have... Okay, so we have... What we can do here is we can check for inputs being 3, and if that's the case, we would change the animation, but not update our position. So if we put this in an else block here, maybe that would fix that problem. Let's see if that does. So we'll check for 3 inputs first, change the appropriate animation, but not actually update its X position or Y position. That should fix that bug. Else. And then last one, we'll do else. Okay. Let's see. 3 inputs held now just doesn't move us. If you're not playing nice and you hold 3 inputs, you just don't move, so. It does, if you're trying to change directions really fast, it makes you stop, but if you're not playing nice, it shouldn't render anyway, and if you play nice, it works fine, so I'm not too worried about that. It's just good that we fixed it. Yeah, I don't know if we should change direction based on that last input, but it's a little ridiculous to kind of build it based on... Dude, I know, I really should. It's just when my glasses are on, it just gives me more chance to get a headache. So, like, even though I'm squinting, it's better than getting a headache from my glasses. So, I don't know. I don't even know where my glasses are at the moment. Maybe I can just do this, you know? There we go. That's too much. That's too much. That's ridiculous. I do like that. I like making the code big like this because, like, when I watch a lot of streamers, their code is just like really small so they can have a lot on screen. But when I'm watching, I can't read shit. So, like, I like that when it's this big, you can look on your phone and you can follow along with the code. We do have to hop around a bit more, but I like that you can actually read it on the phone. So I like it this big. One, because my eyes suck, but two, because people on the phone can just read it better. I don't really like that fix. I mean, it does fix it, but if people don't play nice, it acts a little weird. So let's say handle 3 and 4 inputs better. Maybe change direction for the 4th input. I don't know if we really want to do that, but I think we might. And then I don't know why putting our gecko in makes our character blurry. That doesn't make any sense to me. They're totally separate and in different classes even. Like, we're getting our player in our play state, and then in our scene, we get our gecko. It's gotta be because why? The only thing I'm kind of thinking of is, like, the state machine is the same title as our other entity. So, like, I'm wondering if we put entity walk and entity idle here, if maybe that'll fix our blurry problem, because that's the only thing I could think of. Because when we turn off this code, it fixes our blurriness. So I'm thinking we change the state to idle state here. Idle state returns the entity idle state, so we should be able to render it still. Okay, that really does stop the blurriness. And I think it took me till now to get your joke, aka Bob, about my glasses. Fixing the blurriness of Kavolt here. See, like, look at this, dude. Holding 3 inputs down is just changing his... That's wrong. That's wrong, but I think it really was that the state machine needs the... Yeah, exactly. I think the state machine really does need different titles here. So I guess what we'll do is in our play state, we'll make sure to pass the state machine change to be player walk. And we'll have to make sure we change this everywhere, but just to kind of remind us that we need to have different state names for it. Because the state machine is global, it's defined in our main, so anytime we change the state, it'll change to the actual table that's assigned here, and we were overriding our entity walk state. We were overriding our player walk state with our entity walk state by changing it to the idle state. So we just need to make sure we give these proper names here. And there's only a couple times where we actually call it, so it shouldn't be a big change. If we search for idle, that's the only time we do it here. And if we search for idle here, we just want to make sure entity walk state change to entity idle. No, yeah, entity idle. And then we want to find any other change state idle and make sure we give it the full name, either, and that's in the change animation, so that's not the one. Change state here, okay. So we did get rid of here, this is what we want. This is in our player walk state, so we would change to a player idle here. And then, oops, do we do a change state anywhere else? That's a better thing to grab string search for, is change state. We've got it in the entity. Entity needs to be entity walk. And then that's, oops, we need that. Grab string for change state. And we need to change state here to anytime. That's right, shoot. Change state right here. Oh, this is commented out. Let's just delete this crap. We don't need this. This is our old stuff that we were afraid to delete before we got stuff working, but we should be good now. Let's see if we crash. We crash. State machine. So pressing the button, so maybe under our idle, our player idle state maybe. Yep, change state to player walk, not. What just happened here? Find walk. And then this will be player walk. Okay. Cool. So we're still not rendering our gecko. That's what we want to get. Let's turn our render back on and see if he's back on now that we aren't mixing up our entity states here. So let's, in our scene, let's go to our gecko update, make sure we're updating our gecko. And then make sure that we are rendering our gecko. And let's see if we get gecko. Shit. Okay, it's not here. What are we missing? We've got a gecko instantiation. And you know what? We do change it to the entity idle here, which should return an entity idle state. So if we take a look at the entity idle state, it has the animation of the idle plus the direction. Oh, we aren't setting our direction to be up. Let's, for right now, put direction gets up, the up string, and then maybe we can see our gecko finally. Fuck, nope. Damn it. I thought that was it. So we're drawing our gecko. Yeah. At the current frame, okay. Now, entity walk. Okay, so our entity, we're changing our animation to be idle plus the animation. So let's make sure our gecko has an idle animation called idle up, which we define here as idle up. So we really should have it. But we're not seeing him. Oh, geez, and then this is back. It's gotta have something to do with this, because we should not be this blurry, bro. What is happening there? I'm curious if we don't update our gecko, does that fix this weird rendering issue with Kavoth? So if we go to our render or update, if we stop updating our gecko, does that fix our blurry Kavoth here? No, it does not. This is so confusing to me. I'm not sure why this is happening. If we turn off our gecko entity, we don't have blurry Kavoth. Why would anything in here affect how we're rendering Kavoth? That doesn't make any sense to me. All we're doing is giving our scene an entity, and then we're giving our entity different state machines that are totally different. Well, unless, okay, here's the thing. Maybe unless our Kavoth inherits, player walk state inherits base state, does our player idle state entity idle state. Okay. So our player idle state is inheriting our entity idle state, which is the only thing I could think of that is changing this. So all we're doing in the entity idle state is, yeah, this shouldn't be the case. I think in our player idle state, we just need to include base state. Oh, lordy. Well, then it doesn't render. So let's go to our entity idle state and make sure we've got the render for it. And this will be player idle state. Okay. Now we need to give our see, and I guess I don't know the difference. We have a init. We have an init function for our entity idle state, but for our player idle state, which we don't even have harpooned, we've got an enter state. So let's get rid of this enter state because we aren't even using it, and we'll make sure that we pass in the entity. We'll give it a direction. We'll change it to idle plus the direction. That's good. Player will be starting down. And this will have to be called the player idle state. And then we're good. Now the question is, if we turn back on Gecko, does it screw up our rendering? Because now that we fix that, I can't imagine any other thing affecting our render. So if we go to our scene, turn on our entity, dude, we still get blurry Kavoth. What is going on? That doesn't make any sense to me. Now, when we change in our play state, we change to player walk and player idle, and that gets our proper state machine returned. So we're using different states for the player, and we're changing it to player idle. So now in player idle state, we just gotta make sure we're changing to player walk state, which we are. I'm stumped. I can't imagine why trying to instantiate a gecko in another class would be affecting our render for a totally separate entity that's using totally separate states. Now, oops, let's check our entity walk state. No, our player idle state inherits base state. Walk state inherits base state. Entity walk state inherits base state. Idle state inherits base state. So, where's the problem here? What is going on? Let's just the only thing I could think of to try is just to put our gecko in the play state for now and try to see if that does anything different. And we aren't actually, and you know what? I think we might have to do something like maybe in our scene. You know what? Let me check here real quick. We'll detach. We'll go into the Zelda repo, and we'll just take a peek at how they handle this entity stuff. So they've got entity, which is a class. Okay. We want to look at their entity states here. So their player walk state actually includes the entity walk state. We don't do that, which makes me more confused why ours is busted, because our player walk state does different stuff than the player or the entity walk state. So if we take a look at their room here, let's take a look. I think I actually got their room. Where do they... See, because they're doing something very similar to us, which is they do multiple entities, so they just do a whole table for all those entities, but all we're doing is we're doing this, which is an entity class. We define it based on our entity defs, and then we populate the things we need, and then we go to the state machine and make sure we assign the right string to change our state. Then we actually change our state, and then they update their player and their entity, which we're doing, and then they render their player and all their entities. Entity not dead, entity render. So I don't see where we're doing anything different than they are, other than inheriting the player walk state and idle state inherits the entity idle state and walk state, but we're not doing that. I don't know why we would need to do that. They have it so that, like, we don't have it because our movement is not determined on our direction, it's determined on our inputs, because we can move diagonal when they can't. And the other difference is all of their entities have the same walk speed, and their walk speed's modified by their direction, and we don't do that. We we don't have entities that do stuff like that, so we would just do a function based on the entity type and update it that way, but that's not the problem here. The problem is like our rendering for a totally separate thing, a totally separate class. Update the player animation if we're shifting rooms. Okay, we don't need to do that. I don't see what they're doing different other than that inherit the entity state, which we don't want to do, I don't think. I was really hoping we'd get a gecko on screen today, guys. I'm sorry. Are we... You know what? Yeah, let's try this. Let's try to move our gecko out to our play state. Just see for giggles to see if that'll work. Let's take our gecko entity and we'll go put it in our play state after our player stuff. So we've got a self.player and a self.gecko. We're initiating all of those fields that we need to render, which is just the quads, the entity def. Well, actually, the animations is the thing that's getting the quads. So this actually, yeah, how are we getting the quads into the animation state? Our dot animations table. Okay, it's in our entity class. This animations field gets assigned to be our return images, or to make sprites, or whatever it's called. So it saves it in this dot animations. And then we've got a gecko state machine that we're giving separate values to because we're returning a separate... Oh, hold on a sec. I mean, this is wrong, at least. This needs to be self.gecko, needs to get passed into it, not our player. And self.scene is okay. So that's probably it, guys. Well, let's see. Before I say that, let's make sure we change our state. Okay, so let's go back to our scene and we'll take out our gecko update. We'll put it in our play state, in our update function here. So we render we update our scene, we update our gecko, and then we go to scene and we put in our gecko render, and that will be right here. When we do our scene view, we'll go ahead and put our gecko in there as well. Animation 26 frames, a nil value, so maybe our entity defs. So that's frame, not frames. We need to make sure it's frames. Okay. Oh my god, you guys see him? He's literally camouflage on the dirt path right now. But that's him, the gecko's right there. See, he's on top of us. Oh my god. That's amazing. That's such a great idea. Because he camouflages into that. We're using the same color palette. Oh, he's right there. Oh, that's funny. Okay, so let's see two things. Let's see if we can get our gecko back in our scene, because that makes more sense. And then we'll see if we can get our state machine for our entity to be walking. Hey, Leva, I didn't realize you were here. Glad to see you here, bud. We're gonna see. Yeah, let's just change. Let's do that. So we'll go back to our play state. We'll move all this shit back to our appropriate scene. So really the problem was we were instantiating our state machine with the player again instead of our entity. So that was our issue, and that's why they say did not copy and paste in code, because it just makes little errors like that. But we need to go and snag our update for our gecko, which is in our play state, and we'll snag it here. Gecko update. In our scene, we'll put it back here, and then our declaration for our gecko. We need to go snag all this again and put it back in our scene. We do still have to figure out how to kind of cleanly implement what entities are in the scene, because right now we're just placing it in the global scene here, or like let's see if that gets us gecko on screen, and it does. So what we're gonna do is change our state not to entity idle but entity walk, and we'll see if we've got a little walking gecko. Okay, not working. Entity walk state gets our gecko. Now our entity walk gets our entity walk. Let's check our entity walk state. Change animation is walk down, which should be, let's take a look. Our animation in our animation entity defs for our gecko is only a walk. So let's be more explicit here. It's a walk up because of the up frame. And then now our entity walk is gonna be changed to a walk up. And shit, man, global entity state, a nil value, entity walk state. Let's go to our player, our scene, entity walk. What's going on here? Entity walk is a nil value. It crashes on scene 21, which is right here. Entity walk is a nil value, but entity walk state, are we titling this wrong? Entity walk state, and entity, there we go. Entity walk state. Okay. Walk speed a nil value. Okay. So our entity walk state needs a walk speed, which entity walk state we don't have a walk speed. Let's just give a walk speed right here. And we need to actually change this in our scene when we instantiate it. We need to pass it in right here, because so it's crashing here because our entity walk state is referencing a walk speed. Okay, and it has a self.walk speed here, but actually, yeah, and if we go self.entity walk speed, that should stop. Oh! Did you guys see him? Did you guys see him go? That was it. And because our entity inherits the walk speed of going up, he actually walked. So if we go back to where in our scene, we actually give him, let's say, instead of an X of 50, we go ahead and say that this gets virtual height. Not virtual height, virtual height. And then our Y can stay at 50. Let's see. Oh my God, he's so cute. It's a Y of virtual height. X of 50, Y of virtual height. Now, I do think he needs to run a little faster, so if we go in our entity defs, we can make sure our walking up interval is a little faster. Let's try a 0.1. Oh my god! Oh, that's really cool. Okay, I'm so happy we got a gecko on screen today, guys. That's cool. And he's camouflaged. That's awesome. Okay. Yeah, does that interval look good? I mean, it probably looks like crap on Twitch with the frame rate, but yeah, man, you were here for the Gek update. That's gonna be huge. I mean, I don't know where a gecko fits in a fantasy magic game, but there's creatures in fantasy, right? So like, let's give it a Y of a little over to the right, just so we can see the animation a little bit more clearly. We'll give it an X of maybe 100, and then we'll see. Oh, he's really cute. I feel like he needs to go faster than that. Let's make sure our interval is working as expected. If we give 1, it should be really slow, right? Yeah. Yep. Oh, that's cool. Okay. So then if we give it a 0.01, that'll be insane, right? I don't know how good you guys can see that, him freaking out, but that's what my gecko looks like when you open the door when she's sleeping. She freaks out like that. Yes, yes, yes. We're getting there. We're getting there. Yeah. Let's say... I'm so glad we got... Yeah, I'm so glad we got the gecko today, guys. I'm really happy with that. So, this was our first time implementing an entity system in the game. I mean, we had our player, but like in terms of actually trying to give us a new entity. So, what's so great about this method is that... Oh, you got some geckos, Leva? Dude, mine fall on their head. Not on my head, but they fall on their head when they open the door. I've got a crested gecko. Looks just like this guy. That's awesome. So we've got to send this. I'll export this GIF and we'll send it to Saltomanga, because his stream after we raided him yesterday was saying we should post it in their Discord. So we'll post it there, and then I'm really glad we got that. Now, technically, the gecko keeps its Y position going up and up and up and up and up, and we never disinstantiate it or deinstantiate it. So we're keeping track. Oh, that's cool, man. I don't know if I've ever seen wild geckos. Well, I'm sure I've seen like wild geckos that I don't know what they were, or I don't know what's the technical difference between a gecko and a lizard, other than their sticky pads. But that's cool. You got wild geckos over there. That's awesome. Are they a nuisance, or do you like them? Because I mean, I can see them falling on your head, getting a little old, but also, you know, as long as your mouth is closed, you're okay. Cool. I'll look up some pictures of those common house geckos. That's cool. I like seeing the morning geckos. They're like this big. Oh, that's awesome. See, that's cool. Even if they're a little annoying because they're everywhere, if they eat mosquitoes, they're cool with me. So right now our gecko entity just crawls up and it keeps tracking. So like if we were to print up the gecko's position, it would just keep getting incremented by that walk speed. So we need to deinstantiate it. So ultimately we'll need to add a global table of entities for our scene, determine what entities need to be in that scene, go ahead and populate it, go ahead and update it, and in our update we need to keep track of their position, and if they're still an entity in the scene, and then they'll say then we'll choose to deinstantiate them either over a certain amount of time or once they're dead. because if we have another entity that's a bad guy, we can slay the enemy, kill him, and then it'll remove it from the entity table. But this is a great step. This is a great step. So we did get a bunch of stuff fixed today. We do have to work on fixing that three button input. We still have to fix, because if the player doesn't play nice and just slams a bunch of inputs, then they get stuck in the samba, which we don't necessarily want. We did do a bunch. We got a big get diff today because we removed a bunch of old player class code. We added our gecko entity. So whenever we give a new entity, it's really as simple as defining it in the entity defs. We instantiate it manually however we want, and we can do a for loop to get a bunch of geckos. Like maybe tomorrow we'll do like a gecko wall of all of them crawling up. And we'll practice deinstantiating them and make sure that we've got that concept working. And then we update our gecko, render our gecko, and then we fixed our, we added our gecko atlas, and then we decoupled our entity state, our entity walk state, and our player walk state. And then, gosh, yeah, we did a lot today. Okay. And then we fixed that. Player walk state gets a scene, not a room. And then we kind of fixed our input. We fixed our input list for 3 inputs, but not for 4. So that was really good. Holy crap, that's a big get diff. So we'll see. We'll call a get stat, I think it's called. Yeah, check that out. We've got, oh, once we commit, we'll run this. We'll add everything to the staging area, commit with a message saying added gecko entity. And then we also fixed player transition bug. Okay, we'll get push it, and then if we get stat now, we can see, dude, look at that. We've got 356 line difference in our player class, 34 line difference in our scene class, 13 in our entity defs, 18 in our idle state, 71 in our walk state. That was a pretty big commit there. You know, a lot of it was removal, but that's a big commit. 92 insertions, 441 deletions. That's pretty cool. Okay, so tomorrow we'll work on doing a whole onslaught of geckos and populating them into an entity table. So all we have to do is we decide how many geckos we want, we populate them into a global entity table for our scene, we update them, and then once they reach a certain position, we can say if in our entity class, if our entity's X and Y is outside of our playable bounds, then we need to remove that entity from our entity table. So we'll have to figure out how to do that. And then once we're happy with that working and we get a good understanding of that, then we can add whatever we want. We can add butterflies, we can add dragonflies, we can add any entity we want, including bad guys. We'll just have to give them specific logic. So like right now the entities are just walking up. So we can we'll give them different AI depending on what type of entity they are, and then we'll just have to figure out how to do that. But that we're doing great. But I'm glad you're here, Leva. I appreciate you watching and hanging out with me. And I'll be back tomorrow. I also post these in my past projects up on YouTube. If you're on YouTube ever or want to subscribe to me on there, it's youtube.com/findingfocus, not findingfocus.dev, but I got the full Finding Focus name on YouTube, which is cool. So I post all my older stuff there, but you know, I don't expect you to check it out, but the links are there in my description. But I appreciate you hanging out, dude. I'll catch you later.